one of those players who just affected the Celtics in such a massive, massive way today was Payton Pritchard. Payton Pritchard, our SeatGeek player spotlight. Now, guys, SeatGeek, if you use our code Celtics Weekly at your first purchase, your first checkout of your first purchase at SeatGeek, you'll receive $20 off your first purchase as you see it going past the bottom of the screen right now. Use code Celtics Weekly at checkout for $20 off your first purchase at SeatGeek. Perfect time of year to be using SeatGeek and SeatGeek.com because we know the NBA playoffs, they're in full force. And of course, the baseball season, that is as well. NHL playoffs, got to give them a shout out. And then eventually football's back in September. So SeatGeek, they're always out there, always have us. They always have us covered out here. Everyone go check out SeatGeek for some of the best ticketing prices in sports. But not only does SeatGeek have us covered here for seats, they have us covered for player spotlight. And that player spotlight tonight shines on Payton Pritchard because Payton Pritchard, this was the type of Payton Pritchard game in which I expected to see within the series. 23 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists for P, 1 steal as well, 8 of 16 from the floor, 50% shooting there, and 50% shooting from the 3-point line, 5 of 10. Payton Pritchard hit some big shots in this game and yet again was a spark plug to the Celtics offense off the bench. And it felt like when Payton Pritchard came into the game, there was no lack of confidence in Payton Pritchard, as there never is. I will say Payton Pritchard, he's always a very confident player out there, but he was ready for this matchup. He was ready for this showdown today. Payton Pritchard came out to play, but Andrew, looking at Payton Pritchard's performance today, we didn't see this in games 1 and 2. We thought in game 1 we were going to see it. 13 points in the first half. He was on player spotlight radar at halftime, but didn't score in the second half. Didn't quite come out with a great game 2 either. But today comes out with a 23-point performance in such a big way off the bench on the MSG floor in a must-win game 3 for the Celtics. Andrew, what did you like about Payton Pritchard's performance today?
Yeah, I liked Payton Pritchard's. I thought I liked this. I liked the shot selection. Like I thought he took great shot attempts, whether it was from swings or just he took wide open shots, and it kind of allowed him to flow into this performance. I also think just kind of the offensive charge he took. He almost he just felt like he was really taking charge on the offensive end and stepping into his own. I thought he was a little more timid kind of in those other games, whether it was the first 2 games, right? But I thought he really found a way to insert himself into the offense and and perform. And then also just the Celtics' ability to move the ball and kind of create. He gave Pritchard the opportunity to have more open shots, to have more opportunities to find success. So I think Pritchard's success is also kind of like a byproduct of the Celtics as a whole, just finding a way to just play offense together as a team. And I think we find Pritchard excels in those opportunities.
Yeah, Pritchard is a player in which should be 100% more involved in this series than he's been because I came into the series thinking, you know what, this is a Payton Pritchard series. I mean, you have Jalen Brunson out there. You have if Campaign was taken out of the rotation today, but Miles McBride, Campaign, Jalen Brunson, all 3 of those guys out there. I'm sorry, those are matchups for Payton Pritchard because defensively, you don't feel bad about putting Payton Pritchard on any one of those guys, especially Miles McBride. If he's out there, he's a pure defensive player. Offensively, I mean, I'm just not a Miles McBride just does not have a lot of offensive skill. He's a great driver, he's a great cutter, but outside of that, he's not going to be somebody who's playmaking for others or even hitting shots. It's very limited on that end. But if you have McBride, Brunson, or Campaign out there, Payton Pritchard should be out on the floor attacking on the offensive end of the floor because offensively, Payton Pritchard can be I mean, we've seen it this season. We've seen it multiple times this season. He can be a special offensive player for the Celtics with his ability to make shots and play within this Celtics offense because this Celtics offense, we know it centers on Brown and Tatum. Those are the 2 guys, and they make each other great, but they also make everybody around them great because of all of the attention that's cast on Brown and Tatum. Brown and Tatum, I mean, just think Tatum is a force in his own right. I mean, if you're just talking about Jason Tatum, he is a force in his own right. But then you also have Jaylen Brown to worry about in these circumstances. Well, then all of a sudden, I mean, those are two guys you really have to worry about on the offensive end of the floor. All of a sudden, if Payton Pritchard is out there, I mean, he's your third guy who can create his own shot. Obviously, he can hit catch and shoot threes. He can hit pull up threes, but he can also create his own shot and even at times create for others. And Payton Pritchard to be within that offense, that is what propels Payton Pritchard's game is not only himself and his own ability, but just within the ecosystem he plays in, the environment he plays in. Brown and Tatum, if they're the focal points of the offense, there's going to be a ton of space on the floor for Payton Pritchard to go out there and do his thing. That's why I think we saw ultimately against the Magic. It was game 80 of the season, the regular season.
Mhm.
Only Peyton. It was the top six were out. So no Horford and the rest of the starting lineup, Porzingis, Tatum, Brown, White, Holiday, they were all out, right? That was the top six. They were all out for that
Right.
Orlando Magic game. Peyton Pritchard became the focal point of the offense. And then what happened? The entire defense of the Magic swarmed Peyton Pritchard,
Yeah.
hounded Peyton Pritchard, and he had a tough game. Well, that's because he was the focal point of the offense and he wasn't necessarily ready to be that at that moment in time, especially with his supporting cast around him,
Yeah.
Shireman, Hauser, whoever that game.
We've never
But
asked that of him.
i-
Yeah.
in this system with Brown and Tatum specifically on the floor at the same time, and obviously you have Derek White or Drew Holiday out there as well, or even Al Horford, Kristaps Porzingis, whoever it's going to be within the rotations, to be in that but to be on that team, to be in that offense, if you're Peyton Pritchard, I mean, this is why he thrives. He has so much space to attack on the offensive end of the floor, especially when it comes to his pull up shots. When he gets the ball, he's often looking at somebody who is rotating over to himself and not just focusing on himself defensively. And he often gets a lot of steps on those players and just finds a shot. I mean, he is so good at getting to his spot and getting up his shot. He's such a shifty, crafty player, and today, I just thought there were a ton of moments where Peyton Pritchard came into the game and just hit big shot after big shot after big shot. And there were a lot of moments where I felt like his shot making presence saved the game for the Celtics. We talked about those reflection moments early on in this broadcast. Well, part of that was Peyton Pritchard. You know, the Celtics, they won it as a team, winning some of the deflections, winning some of the could be turnover moments, and they did it as a team, no doubt. But Peyton Pritchard, he had a lot of hand. He had a lot of hand in that too on the offensive end of the floor, just within his ability to make shots out there. So I thought Peyton Pritchard. I mean, he just had an absolutely excellent game on the MSG floor, and it was nothing different from what we saw a couple months ago at MSG back in February, where alongside Jason Tatum has a 40-point night, and Peyton Pritchard, he comes up alongside Jason Tatum and he puts up a 25-point night himself. Tonight, Peyton Pritchard, 23 points for the Boston Celtics, and this comes in. I mean, come on. The whole season we're talking about Peyton Pritchard, sixth man of the year. We knew he was going to win the award. But to do this in the playoffs in such a crucial moment, to be this type of Peyton Pritchard in the NBA playoffs in a game three where you're staring an 0-3 deficit in the face on the road in front of the MSG home crowd. I mean,
Yeah.
that's
That's
that
big.
is that is big time for Pritchard. And that is big time for the Celtics, knowing you have this guy on your roster for the foreseeable future at such a great, I mean, not for Peyton Pritchard, but for the Celtics, a
Yeah.
great price tag. I mean, I think we all know Peyton Pritchard maybe is worth a little bit more than what his salary is right now. But I mean, if you have this guy on your roster, I mean, that is just that is real big time because we've talked about things in the regular season before, just with Celtics teams of the past that come playoff time, we never really see transpire. Well, Peyton Pritchard, there were moments, and obviously the first two games we're going, Peyton Pritchard, he's supposed to be our guy off the bench who comes in and he's that spark plug. He was only 3 of 9 in game two. Well, in game three, when the moment is so big on the road, Peyton Pritchard comes out 23 points tonight for the Boston Celtics,
And
and he
two
just gets the
offensive
job
rebounds.
done.
And
Yeah,
two
two
offensive rebounds. And
offensive
people
re
and do not
yeah.
underestimate the importance of offensive rebounds in a basketball game and how much that helps, momentum, especially from a guy like Payne Pritchard. Like that gets the bench fired up. You know what I mean? It's like, and it's also debilitating to a Knicks team when they're looking at each other like, how do we just let Payne Pritchard 5'11", 6-foot guy get rebounds amongst the trees. It's like that's debilitating to a team. So Pritchard just brings it on every single facet of the game. And there's a reason he's successful, but there's a reason why the Celtics played better today is just because we had more of that fight in us, and let's attribute it to Pritchard.
100%. Payton Pritchard was phenomenal today, and he's been that presence for the Celtics for most of the season. And that activity, you talked about why offensive rebounding is so important, also highlights the defensive rebounding importance, where if you're not getting after it on the defensive boards, well, you're not doing the last step of a defensive possession. I mean, a defensive
Yeah,
possession, you can do every single thing right and not get the rebound, and then all of a sudden it just resets back
24.
again, and that's just
Feeling
so
like
debilitating to a team. Obviously, when their opponent grabbing offensive rebounds, we saw that a lot though in games 1 and 2 from the Knicks. Finally tonight, it seemed to fall more in the Celtics' favor. Now I will say, offensive rebounding wise, the Celtics 12 offensive rebounds tonight for the Knicks. Okay,
yeah,
17.
they had 17.
17. So they actually, but I will say Towns and Mitchell Robinson, they had 11 of those 17 on the night. And in terms of offensive rebounding for the Celtics, 3 for Horford, 3 for Derek White,
More
2
right.
for Pritchard, 2 for Cornette. So I mean, basically you're the normal offensive rebounding crew for the Celtics tonight.